All right, we're going to talk about what we want and predict for the X-Men introduction into the Marvel universe.
To me, my X-Men.
What we
Okay.
would like, how it would go, what we think might happen, and what would be fun. So, all right, go ahead. What were you saying?
Okay. I know what didn't happen, right? I think there's an expectation, not expectation, that's not even the right word.
I know
I
what
think
you
that
mean.
like you had the whole Infinity Saga, Marvel, or rather Disney buys Fox. Now we have the X-Men and Fantastic Four. So I'm glad that Kevin Feige and crew have decided to be a little bit more reserved and not just be like, we got the X-Men, now they're here. Like do it, like take your time, do it right. I definitely had thought at the time, like, oh, are they going to use the blip as like a way to introduce, like, oh, now that like cosmic, wave or disturbance, everybody's back, but like some of
Yeah,
them are mutants.
but
Um,
yeah, like I was saying, I was like, the problem with that is that I I thought that too. That was floated around maybe on the internet, and I picked up on that, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe that's how they'll do it. They'll introduce mutants that way. Problem with that is that you lose the history of the X-Men with the history of mutants dating back to the Age of Apocalypse, right? Or to Apocalypse. And I
yeah,
don't think they want to dump that. I
no,
don't think they want to dump all that. That's a lot of story that you don't get to tell, you know. And my guess is I don't know. Personally, I love Apocalypse. So I think he's a great villain for them to use at some point. And I mean, I would never want to. How would you not want to use them? You got Magneto, but Magneto is going to wind up being a good guy before the end of this first foray into the Marvel universe. He'll be misunderstood in the first one, and he'll wind up coming to the rescue in the second one. I guarantee it.
yeah.
So
Well, it's
what?
interesting because yeah, Apocalypse is awesome, and I'm glad they didn't just do that with the blip. I don't know that time will tell. Like leaking them in through the multiverse is an interesting way to go about it. And I think it's for me, it's just more that I'm ready to see new X-Men and not just like, oh, here are the Fox X-Men again. Here's Kelsey
Right.
Grammer as Beast again. Here's I love Patrick
Well,
Stewart as Professor Xavier, but even they went from like original X-Men movie trilogy to bringing him back for Days of the Future Past and the new First
Doctor
Class.
Strange, right?
Well, no, I was going to say for the First Class series, which I thought Days of Future Past was awesome. That was my favorite
Yeah.
X-Men movie, like by far. But yeah, and then bringing him back into the MCU through there, so it's kind of like I'm ready for them to move on. I will say I'm excited for even in Logan, right? Okay, you still got him in Logan. I'm ready for Deadpool. I'm excited, super excited for
I
Deadpool.
am very
Bring them
excited for Deadpool because of
all
that.
back for Deadpool 3 because in my mind that is going to be like some sort of reboot. I have no spoilers, nothing I've seen, but that's
Do not
where they can.
change Cable. Do not change Cable actor. Do
Yeah,
not change it. I like him as
he's great.
Cable. He's great, and
Yeah,
he looks cool, and he just looks really cool. And Ryan Reynolds is just charming. So I mean,
yeah,
he's the only reason I like the character of Deadpool at all. I hate Deadpool. You know that. We just talked
yes.
about that in
Ryan
one of our other
Reynolds is a
episodes.
national treasure. So
So he's a
um,
national treasure, even though he's Canadian. So he's
hey, they're a
Canada's
nation too.
technically. He's Canada's national treasure. We can
Yeah,
can we steal him as our
yeah.
national
So is
treasure as
Wolverine,
well?
technically.
Yeah.
So Wolverine is
Wait, what do you
Canadian
mean?
also.
Oh yeah, Wolverine's Canadian.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny.
It's also interesting because they've already started, right? So they've had Kelsey Grammer's Beast, and they've had Patrick Stewart's Professor Xavier showing up in this like in the MCU as like another parallel dimension universe, even binary. Um, so like we can't start from scratch, but it would have been very cool if the first. So even if they go that multiverse route, which obviously they have to, they can't just be like, oh, guess what? X-Men have been here for the last like 50 years in hiding, in our
Yeah,
universe. So they
right.
have to kind of go with another universe or a
Find a way,
reboot
yeah, to
of
blend
some sort.
two universes together. Yeah,
But it would have actually been really cool if the way that they stepped into it was like the first alternate universe that they encountered that included X-Men was the Age of Apocalypse universe. And like it was Dark Beast and Weapon X
yeah.
and Apocalypse, and it was like, and Mr. Sinister, and it was like, oh crap, what is this? crazy like dystopian
Yeah,
universe with all of these anti, Avenger characters or whatever. And then they get
yeah.
to like the Fox universe. But I think the one thing, however they do it, I know that probably most everybody on the internet wants to see, myself included, because it was it's so ripe for it, and it was a fun story, is Avengers versus X-Men. Like, okay, if Kang Dynasty is not working out and they're gonna scrap it, like, go ahead, move, or maybe they finish phase 6 in the multiverse thing and they move right into phase 7, Avengers versus X-Men. And
So wait a minute. What does Kang actually do? Does he split timelines and multiverses, or what is his deal?
okay, so from the Marvel Encyclopedia, Kang, time traveling conqueror. His subheading, time traveler. He discovered time travel technology that enabled him to journey virtually anywhere he liked in the time stream.
So what? Well, I mean, all right. So you can just say he does multiverses and stuff, but I mean, like, what do you think would be the best way to blend them into the universe? Like, have a thing where Kang brings them to a planet where all of a sudden they have to square off against the X-Men characters, and then at the end they just sort of like are like, hey, like their universe gets destroyed, and now those people are just generally in our universe, or
No.
something of that nature, or what?
No. I think
That would be a terrible idea, to be honest.
yeah. We've got 7 mutants in our universe now. I hope Apocalypse
Yeah,
is one of them.
I hope about.
Uh,
I hope he's been here all along.
yeah. I honestly think that,
I've
like,
got an idea.
go on.
They accidentally Rama Tut, what's his name, Kang, wakes up his champion Apocalypse from a deep sleep, and when he wakes up, he brings out the latent mutant powers of everybody in the world.
But then you still don't have
The
mutants up
history,
until today, except for one old one.
right? Except for one old one. Damn. Nope, we can't crack it like that. Damn.
Yeah.
Darn.
There's because the idea of them, and I've heard a few different like theories. I think even Screen Crush did one the other day that was pretty interesting, pretty cool. Like, oh, how could you do it? That something happening like similarly, like wakes up a latent mutant gene that has been there. Oh, actually, their theory had to do with like the cosmic powers, and even the quantum bands and the bangles. Well, we already know Kamala's a mutant in the new X-Men and in the MCU. Um, yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't want to see
I
it.
know. I
I
got
think
it.
that there has to be some sort of a soft reboot of like, okay, there's been incursions, secret wars, like universes like destroyed, universes collide, and now we're kind of like, we've still got some same characters, but we're starting over, not starting over, but like we're in a new world now, and we can start
I
exploring
know.
new ideas.
I
Yeah.
got it. I got it. I got it. Deadpool does it. Deadpool crashes both of the multiverse things together.
There are theories about that like he's going to be doing some sort of like, he's going to be responsible for some sort of like soft reboot or
Yeah,
whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, so I would say he kind of exists in the Fox world, right?
He does.
And I think that he's in that universe, and then at some point, whatever X-Men villain they're dealing with in this specific thing, with maybe Cable's in it. I don't know. Is Cable back in this one
Not
or
that I don't
whatever?
know
But
anything except for Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
okay, all right. So I mean, because Cable apparently comes from, well, he comes from the future or something, right? So anyway, there'll be some sort of who jammy where some villain is fucking with the multiverses, and Deadpool just screws the whole thing up, causing both of the things, like the whole thing's like, oh, we're supposed to stop this from happening. This guy is trying to destroy the multiverse or something, some X-Men villain, I don't know. And he
Strange.
just he just cuts the guy's head off on accident while he's in the middle of doing the thing, and then both the whole worlds collide. And he's like, "Oh, my bad! I totally cut that Toad's head off." And then Wolverine's like, "I told you specifically not to cut the guy's head off." Now the
Um,
whole worlds collide, and then all of a sudden, like they all land in a next to Nick Fury, and he's like, "Who
so
are you, strange individuals?"
this is why I'm not a screenwriter. Um, and I leave it to the professionals. But yeah, I liked there was a in the Ultimate universe, the original with like the Ultimates and with Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Miller, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates. I think the mutant introduction there was actually more recent. Like they may have gotten into Apocalypse later, but like originally, I think actually, if I remember correctly, Wolverine was the first mutant, and it had to do it may butcher it. I think it had to do with them trying to recreate Captain America's super soldier serum. Um, or maybe he even predated that, and it was just a more modern thing, and it was actually kind of interesting.
So, what X Men characters would you like to see for the first foray into an X Men film?
Oh, is that even a question? So obvious. Gold balls, beak,
Beak, Cassandra Nova. Who else? Jubilee, Boom Boom.
boom, boom.
I want. Oh, and Dazzler. So we have three women with light power. We got to have at least. You need at least three women who can shock people with
Who can
light.
dazzle people?
Dazzle, dazzle, and Boom Boom and Jubilee people.
Yeah, is Gem in the holograms? Is she an
No,
X-Men?
Gem is a Hasbro property. It's
Okay.
technically she'd be more along the lines of the GI Joe universe with the Transformers.
Or
So you
maybe
could always
Magic the
have that.
Gathering. We'll see a Gem
Or
crossover.
there, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a Gem Magic the Gathering crossover. But yeah, what other kind of silly X Men characters could we throw into this team? Oh, Skin, the guy who rips all his skin off. That's a good power. What about Marrow, the lady whose
Marrow.
bones grow up,
Marrow. Yeah.
bones grow on the
She's
outside of
got
her
her bones
skin?
on the outside.
She's got her bones on the outside.
Um,
He's wearing the. Who else?
who would I like to see? Who would I
So
actually like to see? I praise it and boast about it, probably once a week, that Peter David's run on X Factor took a bunch of like random characters and made them
yeah,
so interesting. Like,
yeah,
who would have
yeah.
thought that Multiple Man would be actually one of the more like, you know, provocative or the most interesting characters? I want to see Psylocke done right. I think Olivia Munn was actually perfect for
I
the
didn't
role.
mind her at all.
I
Yeah,
thought she's great, and I thought
plot was
I was
silly, but
what?
the plot was silly,
No,
but
that's
she
what I
did
mean. Is like I
fine.
thought that like she was great for the role, and I was excited to see her. And they kind of just did her wrong in that
Yeah,
movie.
they don't really.
So like,
Yeah,
give her another chance. I don't care. Like, let her be
yeah,
Psylocke. I definitely want to see Psylocke. I think Emma Frost was also done terribly in First Class. She was just kind of like a side henchman for like 5 minutes in the
yeah.
movie.
But she was
Um,
a side henchman for what's his name? Um,
Bastion or whatever.
yeah, Sebastian Shaw,
Yeah, yeah. But
who
also,
was played by my boy
no, as I'm saying, in that movie, she was a
Kevin
side
Bacon.
character. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's fine for the very beginning in the 60s. But then, that gives her the opportunity if you go into the like 70s, 80s era to make her, because she wasn't all important the first time you see her. I mean, you have to give her a chance to grow as a character into the woman who eventually leads students in the X-Men, right? Is that
Sure.
the version that you want of her?
No, I just want to see a good version of her, because even if it's like, okay, she's introduced as like, this is going to be like, she's going to grow into something more, then like they can still do it well. It felt like, how, okay, like Bucky, for example, in Captain America, the First Avenger, like, I don't know, like you probably didn't know he was going to turn into like Winter Soldier for the next movie and be Winter Soldier in many movies to come and have his own show, but like they set him up like well enough to carry that character forward. And like the way they introduced Emma Frost in First Class was just like, oh, she's just a throwaway character. Like, just give her some substance.
Oh yeah, well I don't know. I'd have to rewatch that because I really liked her, and I liked that actress a lot. It was January Jones who was in Mad Men, which you haven't watched,
No.
but boy, she's got some crazy good acting chops, dude. Like
Well,
that woman
so
is
I
like
think
I'll tell you, she's such a good actor. That character is so important to the X-Men universe that those two are a match that is dead perfect because she is such a good actress, a good dramatic actress. It's almost like it's almost I could almost imagine her being like, I'm too good of an actress to play this character. Like I could literally see that. And what's funny is she did a very down they played her character down too much. I know what you mean, right? Because I feel like she didn't really get too many moments to shine or do anything
no, she had
exceptional.
like
And
3 lines
that's
in the
not her
movie or
fault.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really her fault.
Like
But
it shouldn't have been Emma Frost as that character in that role. Like it should have just
it
been
should
like,
yes, there's another character you could have used who's a lesser kind of character
yeah.
that you could have used for
And
sure.
like
I agree with
save
that.
her. You know how like a lot of people will complain that like, I don't know, certain villains where it's like, ah, you know, Hela could have been more, or like Gore the Butcher, like they could have done so much more, and they just kind of like introduce him, he's kind of lame, and then they kill him. Like Emma, like could have been so much more. They just should have saved her. But anyway, so
Right.
I think
So
that yeah, I would like to see Jean done right. I didn't really like. I like the actresses, but I've not liked any rendition of Jean. Phoenix and Dark Phoenix Saga. Every attempt has been like an utter failure. I would like to
I
see,
don't sick and tired of that story right now. And that's a great story for the MCU. I feel like it's a perfect story for MCU storytelling
yeah.
because you get to have I mean it's basically your Wanda character over again, right? So you have your Wanda character who suffers a great loss and then all of a sudden becomes this giant demonic
Like make
monstrosity
that
of a
the
villain.
actual like, okay, like so phase 4, 5, 6 is the multiverse saga. 1, 2, 3 is Infinity Saga. 4, 5, 6 is multiverse saga. 7, 8, 9 is like mutant saga. Like
The
have it
Phoenix
culminate
Saga.
with like Dark Phoenix, and at the end of like, the phase 9, 20
Yeah, so
movies
you
from
got
now.
I mean, yeah, you got to get a good, I mean, you got to get a good I mean, we know the girl who played Jean Grey in the last one can do the job. She's good actress, Sophie. But I hated that movie. That was terrible,
It was
absolutely
a really bad
terrible.
movie, and
It was almost unwatchable. So
like I guess also, okay, are we? It's kind of like the same question we talked about with like Spider-Man and whatever. Are we going to get an introduction of the X-Men where it's like, all right, this is, sort of like a first class style thing where like we got like young kids that are being recruited by Professor X, or are we jumping in where like, are we going to see a teenage Jean, or are we going to see like a Jean in her 30s,
I would say personally, what I would do is I would say you absolutely should do a adult version of Jean and an adult version of these characters, right? And then you actually can do episodes where you do flashbacks to younger, earlier eras of X-Men. Like, do you remember when we first started kind of thing? And you could even do it as a TV show with other actors playing those characters. People really got to stop hooking on to absolutely seeing you're screwing yourselves by not wanting different actresses to play one particular character, right? Like a young
Well,
version and an
also
older version. People
it's
are like, "Oh no,
interesting.
I want a young version so that way I can have this character for 7 movies going forward." Well, now you've stuck the filmmakers into the process where you have to start at the very very beginning. And we don't need to start at the beginning with the X-Men. We can come into a world through the Deadpool movie where the X-Men have existed and you have an adult woman and you want to tell a more charming, old timey story about the early days of the X-Men to appease fans or, to have a great throwback, you can throw back, but people better be ready for different actors to play those characters, right?
With Gene, you also get like the flexibility, not with all the characters, but there's like multiple clones of Gene out there. So you can have
Yeah,
like, all right,
yeah.
Madeline Pryor is like
Madeline
a
Pryor,
different
yep. And
age
the
or a different
Goblin
actress.
Queen,
Emma Frost, uh, Storm, I think is
Cyclops, Jean,
important.
Emma Frost.
I like, obviously, Wolverine's my favorite character, but I don't like, it's like, I don't want him to steal the show and be like, all right, everything's about Wolverine again.
Right, I know. That's
Um,
what happened with the last X-Men Fox movies. Everything became about Jennifer Lawrence. Like the entire X-Men
yeah.
universe revolved around that idiot character that they made
And
for
but
her. It was
Mystique
like
is a really cool
Mystique is the
character.
most. Yeah, I'm so sick of Mystique after
Well,
that
no, I'm just
girl's
saying, but like
performance. Like,
as a
ugh.
character in the comics, she's great. Magneto is, awesome, but I don't want to just keep getting the same characters. I think there's a lot of characters that
Yeah,
they could. Um,
yeah. Like, what about Jamie Madrox? He'd be great, multiple man. That's
no,
a
I
guy. That's a
told you
good
I want to
visual.
see X-Men
That's a good.
Spotlight written by Peter David, X Factor Investigations. Um, so yeah, we've got Beast,
Isn't Strong
Cyclops.
Guy in there too?
He is
Yeah, I like
Storm,
him.
Psylocke, Emma Frost, Gambit. Gambit can be done right. Actually, have
Yeah.
Havoc as an interesting character. Um,
Are you just picking the Jim Lee X-Men?
no, I was looking at a list of X Men, but obviously those are the ones that I resonate with most.
You can't just start at the very beginning with the first five, right? With
No, I don't think they should. I mean, I would like to see Kitty Pryde as like an older, like she's already like a teacher. I mean, Iceman, I feel like they've never really done right in the movies. So like, especially he's supposed to be like an Omega level mutant, one of the most powerful. Huh?
I have never thought of him like that. I did not.
Yeah,
Iceman,
well, that's
wow.
the thing. That was kind of the thing when they sort of introduced that idea in the like late 90s or early 2000s. It's like he's actually way more powerful than even he realizes. He could basically like stop all motion and like of liquid on the earth and like freeze the whole planet if he wanted
Oh
to,
my God, that's stretching it. But it's like,
I think that's
how did Apocalypse miss that one for his four horsemen, huh?
he's also the
Boy,
comic relief character.
Apocalypse missed that the way Yoda missed the Emperor.
Omega level
Uh,
mutant right now. But anyway, so
ugh,
yeah, I mean, I
silly.
think there are a lot of characters. Well, as
I
I said,
loved him in Super Friends. What was it? Not Super Friends. Spider-Man and his
Spider-Man's
Amazing
Amazing
Friends.
Friends. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
of course.
It's
Um,
just it's interesting. There's so many X-Men characters that, as much as I love the movies, that weren't done well. Like Storm was never really done well.
oh yeah, Storm. How do we miss Storm? You know she's going to be in there. So
Yeah,
my basic thing is that, like, all right, so we know who they're going to go with. Obviously, you're going to get Xavier. You're definitely going to get Jean and Scott. You're definitely going to get Storm, and you're definitely going to get Wolverine. That's going to be it. It's going to be Rogue and Gambit.
I'd like to see
And then,
Rogue
so what is
and
that?
Gambit.
That's three women and three dudes, right?
I think
And
yeah, there's so many directions that they could go with it too, because like what's interesting, some of the like branch off stories, right? Like, okay, you have X-Men and you have mutants and X-Men in the MCU now. Well, like similar to like I'm sorry, to Captain America's Civil War, like they may definitely go in a direction of like a movie. It could be X Factor and it could not be the Peter David X Factor, but the movie could be like Thunderbolt Ross or whoever the government leader is. Like it's like, these X-Men characters, like we need our own team, and he recruits, and now they have a government funded, because isn't that how like X Factor actually started? It was like the government funded. It was like with the
geez,
new
I don't remember that. I forgot
X-Men.
how they did that. That was Louise and Walter Simonson, I believe, or
So
Louise
like what
Simonson
happened?
and
So Giant Size X-Men and X-Men 94, right? The original five are captured by Krakoa, whatever. So Professor X recruits Colossus, Nightcrawler, Sunbird, Sunspot, Warbird, whatever, Thunderbolt, I don't know, whatever.
Thunderbird. Thunderbird.
Wolverine, Nightcrawler. They go rescue the X-Men. Now there's all these people, so they go off. And I thought that the original five went to form X Factor, and they were working for the
The
government.
original five went to, yeah, I don't even remember who the leader was of that team, because it was Scott
Cyclops.
and Jean. It was Scott and Jean and who else? Angel, who's now Archangel, and Iceman, and yeah, it's the originals, right? And then the other team, and then Nightcrawler went off and created Excalibur.
Well, yeah, Excalibur was like wasn't that like the European?
European, kind of European team. Yeah, they had
Yeah.
what is it?
Oh, but so the
Night
other
Guy
thing, the other branch off that I would love
and
to see is, again, only if Marvel gets comfortable with doing more adult stuff at some point.
Yeah,
Give
I
me
know
an
what you're gonna say.
X-Force, like the Uncanny X-Force movie or show where it's like, all right, yeah, there's the X-Men and they're like family friendly, but there's a secret team of, a few individuals, Wolverine and whoever, running like covert, operations, doing the dirty work that like X-Men aren't going to do, where they're actually like assassinating like people and or bad guys or whatever, and doing some like darker stuff that's like outside the purview of the normal X-Men. So you have like X Factor could be the government team, X Force could be the covert team. I would much rather see X Factor as a Peter David, like, spotlight show, but it's neither here nor there. I
In
would
the
actually
comic?
like them to introduce Magneto as a villain that's like
Yes.
a more
And
complicated villain that
can they
like,
keep him a villain for a little while? Because
right. I
I'm
was just
pretty
going to say
sure
that,
he's gonna
like,
be.
keep him a villain for like the first two phases, and only by like phase 3, 20 movies in, or do they, have him
I
like
think I think
reluctantly working with whoever?
you do your first phase of X-Men movies, and then you do your next phase, which if you want to do your what is it? What do you call it? Saga, the Phoenix Saga. I don't think the Phoenix Saga is as important as other people make it out to be because it's
Well,
bright and it's colorful, and I could see why it would work for the MCU because you can bring in a bunch of characters like the Shi'ar and all that. But to me, that's good for a good arc for your X-Men characters. But the third one should be the one that changes Magneto to a good guy, and that should be the Age of Apocalypse. So you have Age of Apocalypse where
oh yeah,
Magneto starts to recognize after having some recollection of the memories of what happens in Age of Apocalypse to be like, oh my god, like if Charles is ever gone, the world will end, right?
yeah,
So I better learn to be this dude's friend. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
it might one day all fall on my shoulders, right? And so that's when you slowly get to the uncomfortable friendship of the two of them, from
yeah.
from being arch enemies.
Did you ever read House of M?
No, I didn't actually. I think I started and I fell off on it. I fell off
um
on it.
I mean, that's a cool one, and I mean, we're talking like years down the line. Can they do something like that where they've like, all right, they've now had, in the same way it's like, all right, you've got Avengers for 20, 30 movies and we need to like shake it up. Like they could have X-Men for, 20 movies worth, and then we need to shake it up, do House of M movie or storyline. It's true. Like they could do 4, 5 phases, 6 phases of just X-Men. If they were like, okay, we're just going to do
Yeah,
X-Men now, they could do like
that's what they should do.
phase
Like they
one is
really
like,
should. Like
yeah,
Deadpool should cause that rift, right?
like
Just be like,
there's
look,
enough characters
oh
in
yeah,
just X-Men for them to do 25 movies, 30 movies of like, all right, this is the X Factor storyline, this is the X-Force storyline, this is Extinction Agenda, this is, Inferno, this is, whatever, like Dark Phoenix,
dude,
there's
you
so
want
many
to
of
put
them.
lines around the block to go see an X-Men movie at a movie theater. You have this Deadpool movie completely shatter the MCU, and then you literally are like, okay, we're going to have these other movies that we're continuing on, but coming in 2027 is going to be the first and X-Men movie based on whatever the results are of the Deadpool thing, right? And I guarantee you will have people flocking to the movie theater if you just go, boom, we are just straight up dropping an X-Men movie in your lap, and it'll be like selling millions of copies of Jim Lee's X-Men with 5 covers. I'm telling you, people will see it 5 times if you just say we are just straight up doing like an X-Men movie, and it's like the X-Men 9017 with all those characters, and then you go ahead and you do that. You just put it right out there, and I guarantee you
You
that
know,
will
that's you're
that
you
will
know what you're on.
people will forget all the hatred they have for all the MCU if you do that movie correctly.
I think you're onto something actually. What they need to do is when they do finally drop an X-Men movie, 5 variant intros. So the
Five
MC, the
variant
MC, the
intros.
Marvel logo coming in, and each time you see it, you might get the red one, or you might get the blue one, or you might get the one with all the X-Men characters. So you have to go see it 5 times to collect all of the different, Marvel like logo stinger intros.
Stinger intros, and it comes polybagged. They put a bag over your head when you go into the theater. And they seal it, so you can't
Yeah.
unseal it, or the movie has no value.
All right. On that note, I think we can. I think we should each do a little bit of research on like what X-Men characters do we want to see. Actually, what X-Men characters do you want to see? Tell us. Tell us in the comments below. Well, let's ask what other
Tell
people,
us in the
because
comments below.
I think other people probably have better ideas than I do. That's why I leave it to them.
Yeah, nobody has better ideas than I do.
Yeah.